I got this wrong. Rico Verhoeven, a fighter unranked in professional boxing, taking on Oleksandr Usyk, a generational great, for the WBC heavyweight title. And I was chatting with a mate pre-fight and I looked at Rico and I thought, you know, he's big, he's strong, experienced, punch-heavy style for a kickboxer. And to be fair, his boxing is good for a kickboxer. Hi, my name is Jacqui-Lee Pryce, former boxer, and I spent many years in the sport as a boxing coach and judge. And before Rico fans get all up in their feelings, I don't mean that as a disrespect, but honestly, I think I got this wrong. Not the result, the transition. Because as somebody who used to do kickboxing before transitioning into boxing myself, I know how difficult that process actually is. People think punching is punching. It isn't. The more you really look at the mechanics of elite boxing, the more the gaps starts to show massively. The stance is different. Kickboxers, you know, they often stand more square on to get their kicks off. The mechanics are different. The weight distribution is different. The shape after punching is different. The footwork and placement is different. Kickboxers can sometimes struggle with lateral movement, and one of the biggest things, rotation. Kickboxers can sometimes struggle to really get that clean rotation and drive off the floor with their shots consistently. Now, don't get me wrong. I have seen some of Rico's fights, and hence, you know, good for a kickboxer. He is actually better than most. He looks good on the pads, but pads are isolation, and fighting Oleksandr Usyk is a different problem entirely. And this is where I think people miss the real story of this fight. When kickboxers try to alternate between, you know, kicking and punching, certain habits get ingrained. And as someone who's competed in both combat sports, I know firsthand my kicks were great. Then I started boxing and everything fell apart. The timing, execution, the ability to flow between, you know, punching and kicking. It took me about a year to start really marrying the two together properly. So when I look at Rico, you know, I'm not trying to put him down. If anything, I'm actually giving him credit, because this is a man who's been entrenched, you know, in kickboxing since he was 7 years old, and he's now 37. That's 30 years of drilled in reactions, drilled in movements, mechanics, and under pressure, fighters often revert to type. So even before you add in the mental fatigue of trying to solve the Usyk problem, you're already, you know, trying to undo years of learnt behaviour. I don't really know what to make of this fight, because there were parts of this performance from Rico that I thought was genuinely impressive. And then there were other parts where I think, you know, what is actually going on here? Usyk looked very different to me, even on the ring walk. Yeah, he was walking with purpose, but he didn't look like, you know, the same locked-in Usyk like he did against Dubois. Round one, straight away, you can see why this is such a strange matchup. Rico's movement is very awkward, just very hard to read. He's drifting across. He literally then pivots off the back foot to change angle. There's almost this like hip to lip or hand to waist movement, very unorthodox. So when Rico throws a jab in the early rounds, Usyk, he just never looked able to read or time it, because it literally wasn't a classic boxing jab. Rico also brings his lead foot back like a kickboxer, sort of narrowing the stance. And this is exactly what I mean when I talk about, you know, the difficulty of transitioning from kickboxing to boxing. You're trying to undo years of learnt movement. But despite that, Rico was actually having some success. He pushes Usyk back onto the ropes early, lands a beautiful right hand to the body. And what really stood out to me, he wasn't even responding to the feints. And that's very unusual against Usyk. Usyk's entire game is built around making people react, setting traps, beating them mentally. And Rico, he just kept like walking forward, walking through it. Ugly at times, very square on, but effective enough to keep putting Usyk on the ropes. And this is the thing, Rico's boxing is flawed, but in the grand scheme of things, for a kickboxer against a former undisputed champion, parts of it were actually very good. So round 2, Usyk is using his jab more, having some success, but again, he's getting caught on the exit. And this is not a normal Usyk thing. Normally his feet, they get him in and out of trouble. The angles are there. Normally he's slipping and sliding, making you miss. We didn't really see that early on. Rico's bundling forward, very square on, but managing to walk Usyk back to the ropes. Usyk trying to set things up, and Rico just kept coming. And again, Usyk looked slower than normal. The footwork wasn't there. The hands weren't coming back quick enough. It was like he was there in spirit, but he didn't look himself. Round 3, Rico is kind of hunched over, leaning over the front foot, and this is the first time we really see Usyk trying to get off that rear hand uppercut. Rico is coming in square on, he's bending over as he walks into range, and when Usyk starts to get the right timing, you can see the shots are there, but even then, the output still feels low. But listen, Rico, he's still having success. He's landing body shots, landing the overhand right, and then he walks Usyk back to the ropes, leans on him, drains him with his body. And fair play to Rico, but that was another round for Usyk. Round 4, Rico starts, he's flicking out the jab now, more of an orthodox style. And even though he isn't really scoring with it, Usyk, he's trying to judge the distance. And this is where you start to see Usyk make adjustments. The moment he actually puts his foot on the gas, opens up with that, that uppercut hook combination, Rico was finding it difficult to defend it. Then Usyk he takes his foot off the gas again. And that's why this felt so weird, because there were moments where you could clearly see the difference in levels, but then Usyk just didn't press. Round 5, Usyk looks flat-footed, not sure if he's experienced, a serious bout of lethargy. He's static, and even when standing right in front of Rico, Rico wasn't really throwing much. And this is where some of the inexperience shows. There were missed opportunities. Every now and again, he would explode into range, he'd smother Usyk and have success. But the moment Usyk went on the offensive, Rico was kind of searching for answers. And this is where I also started thinking, it definitely didn't feel like a normal Usyk fight. And people saying, Usyk looked tired. I can't work out whether he was tired or just distracted. Okay, round 6, faster start for Usyk, working to the head and body, starting to close the gap. And we see Rico starting to have some success with the feet again. He's stepping in behind straight shots. He's cutting Usyk off, getting him onto the ropes. Usyk was kind of trying to draw him in, trying to set traps. And Rico, he just kept walking through them. Round 7, Rico is still having moments, still pushing Usyk back, still landing, the odd big shot. I don't believe that Usyk looked in any real trouble. People were talking like Rico was battering him. Very competitive, yes. Successful at times, yes. But did Usyk ever look like he was being schooled? And again, we keep seeing moments where Usyk would push him back, go through the gears. Round 8, we now start to see Usyk, just put it on him a little more, drawing him in, landing that rear hand uppercut, starting to find the timing. And again, I can see why that shot was there all night. You know, Rico is leaning over that front foot. You know, he's coming in square, he's walking forward. And once Usyk starts timing that, you can see the difference. Yeah, you know, really impressed with Rico. He's still having pockets of success. And this is also where I think Peter Fury deserves credit, because this just wasn't about, you know, putting a game plan together. He also had to try and break years of ingrained kickboxing patterns, and that is incredibly difficult. The stance, the distance management, his overall shape, managing the gears, and despite all of that, Rico, he still managed to be competitive for large parts of the fight. Round 9, now we start to see a little bit more of a spring in Usyk's step, and this is where people were getting just a little bit carried away. Yes, Rico was having success, and I guess by the scorecards, landing the eye-catching shots. But again, you know, Usyk still didn't look in trouble. We just weren't seeing the normal superior IQ Usyk, and yeah, that was a shock. Round 10, now Usyk is really starting to find his timing. Good shot selection, he's drawing Rico in, landing that rear hand uppercut, and this is where you see the difference between, you know, a very good striker and an elite boxer start to show. Because the moment Usyk really went on the offensive, Rico had no answers. And this is also the round where, you know, you start to see Rico look tired. Hey, listen, no shame in that against Oleksandr Usyk. Round 11, now Usyk is on the front foot, he's finding his range, he's landing the jab, landing the uppercut, mixing it up and walking Rico onto shots. And to be fair, he had been setting him up for this combination most of the fight. Rico ploughing forward, shuts down Usyk's attempts, but Usyk was starting to turn the screws, and once he did, Rico didn't really have the defence to cope with it. Then we get that combination on the back foot, and Usyk walks him onto an uppercut. Rico gets dropped, gum shield out. As he walks back to the corner, you know, he is unsteady on his feet. Extra time to put the gum shield in. The action resumes, and Usyk, you know, he steps in behind a 1-2, second phase, several unanswered shots, and just as the referee is stepping in, the bell sounds. So, was it a premature stoppage? You can argue that Usyk, he was closing the show, Rico looked tired, but again, if you look at how long Wardley Dubois went on and how much punishment Wardley received before the fight was stopped, yeah, listen, it's a razor-thin decision. In the interests of fairness, in my opinion, Rico should have been allowed to come out for the 12. Yeah, you can argue the stoppage was coming, but I also think both guys got robbed. Usyk got robbed of a clean finish, and yeah, Rico got robbed of the chance to see if he could, you know, survive the final round. Very interesting fight. Props to Rico. Listen, I don't mean this as a disrespect, but was that a bad day at the office, or, you know, father time catching up with Usyk? Also, what's with robbing Usyk of his moment? Yeah, at least let him get his belts around his waist first. And I've noticed this keeps happening to him. Caballero does deserve his shot though. Then regardless of the outcome, retire. You know, I, like many, don't want to see Usyk lose his legacy, you know, bow out before the body lets you down. Rico, he's proved himself to be a worthy contender. And just like Wardley, who has shed his white collar tag, Rico will no longer be the ex-kickboxer, but the man who fought and gave Usyk some real problems at times. So yeah, congratulations. If you want an authentic voice in boxing, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, drop a comment in the comments section, and yeah, catch you in the next one.